Welcome, 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 welcome. Everyone tonight was able to make it live on the Zoom room call tonight. And for those of you who are listening now through the recording, I want to welcome you tonight. I am so excited about our conversation. Julie, I see you. Heather, I see you. Angelica. I do get this right. I see you, and Sheena and Debbie and Karina. Hi, how are you? Bonnie, you're a little muted, but I see you there. Elizabeth, Sabrina, Samantha. Samantha, happy birthday, darling. Happy birthday. I know you just keep getting younger and younger and younger. I don't know how you do it. Shelly, Brandy K. Girl, you're looking good. You're looking good. Man. Fiona, Gwenda, how are you? Michelle Vidal, I see lots of you. Bonnie, Carol. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. I know people are all starting to come on the line now. So what I'm going to do is throw it into gallery view. For those of you that don't want to see the chatting along the side, which you can chat, or you maybe don't want it, sometimes it's fun to be part of the conversation, and sometimes you don't want to be part of the conversation. So either way, I'm going to actually expand the screen so that I don't see all the chatting and comments, and then I can just focus on my special guest tonight, Jackie Brown, our expert tonight. I'll be introducing her in just a moment, but I'm going to grab my notes because I did make some notes because it's important to make notes. Here we go. I am so excited. Seriously, guys, so excited about this hour conversation tonight with my special guest expert, Jacqueline Brown. I love that name, Jacqueline Brown. You know, we're going to be talking about why you need to tell your story. Why your unique voice matters, and why you sharing your wisdom, because you have wisdom inside of you. You have talents, you have experiences that you've gone through that absolutely will help someone else. And I want you to know that it's time for you to step into this next phase of your life. And that's why you're here tonight. And I know that's why you're here tonight, for you and for all of collective consciousness. I will never forget, in 2009, the Dalai Lama, I'm just going to make sure we've muted everyone. Let's just make sure we're all muted other than Jackie. Okay. Jackie, I'm going to make sure that can you unmute yourself again? I think you should be able to, because you are a host.
I unmuted myself. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So everybody else is muted, and I'm going to go into full screen now. Full screen. Oh, I don't even know what I'm doing. Speaker view. There we go. Now I see you, Jackie.
Oh, wonderful.
You're all I see. If you do the same thing, you can just see me too if you want to do that. Hit that. I think at the top, gallery view or speaker view. You'll see that.
So it's not that one.
Go to the top. Where was I was in, if you click speaker view at the top there, do you see that at the top of your screen, speaker view?
I see gallery view.
And click on that and see if you can get speaker view. And then you don't have to see everybody else. You can just see you and me talking. Is that good? Does that work for you?
It hasn't so far.
You'll figure it out. You will figure it out because you're.
Oh, I see it now. Yay!
Oh, yay. Yes. When we see it. Okay. So we're going to be talking tonight. This is great, Jackie. I can only see you now. Can you just see me?
Yes, now I can just see you.
Yes,
that's wonderful.
We're good. We're ready to go. We're ready to rock and roll. Ladies, these are things, Jackie is not used to getting up here and having to, be my co-host on a Zoom call.
I feel pretty shy. But,
we've reached thousands and thousands and thousands of people today. So even if everybody isn't on the call live, we've reached thousands of people, and this has a trickle effect. I love when I remember when I did my first Facebook live video, and I didn't even realize that I had the phone turned sideways. So I didn't realize that everybody was looking at me but that, after I figured it out 10 minutes in that my computer was turned the wrong way, that ended up having, I think it was over 40,000 views. So it's amazing how these kind of videos will go viral. And for, everyone that's seeing us learn this for the first time, you'll be doing this soon too, because we're really here teaching you how you too can do these same kind of things in your life to share your story and to tell your truth. And so tonight we're not only going to talk about the big big picture reasons why we need you to tell your story, we're going to talk about the practical steps too. Jackie, what did I tell you? Don't have your Outlook on, so it doesn't.
Is that what that is? That
was me.
Good, because I thought I'm so sure I turned mine off. Thank you.
No, you did, and I didn't. I'm like,
okay.
Anyway, We're going to talk tonight, ladies, about how to really exercise your writing muscle, because writing, and I know this to be truth, and Jackie, after 25 years of
Yeah.
helping people get their work out to the world, knows this to be truth.
Yeah.
Writing is like a muscle. And, you know, every time you use it, sometimes it gets torn down because your critic, your inner critic, or that outer critic, someone in the world, tears it down. And that's how a muscle builds stronger. It gets torn down and it repairs and it builds back stronger. And really, it's like courage. Writing really improves your courage muscle and your writing muscle. And so Jackie's going to talk about a lot of the tips that she has for how to improve and strengthen your writing muscle, how to make writing a part of your daily life, how to organize your stuff, she calls it, your passion, your suffering, your celebrations, your truths, and how to share all of your stuff, all your stuff to your story. And Jackie is here over the next hour. It's going to move fast, I promise you. So turn off distractions, because we've already created distractions for the first 5 minutes, and we're going to talk seriously now, because the world needs us right now. And Jackie, this is sort of serious in a very honest moment. You know, I wrote a blog this morning, and this is how I know that my writing muscle is getting stronger. Something that would have taken me a lot of time to ponder, think about how I wanted to write it, reread it, write it, put it away, pull it back out, look at it again, write it again, find a whole bunch of mistakes I didn't even see the first time. Like that whole process of finally having the courage to post it on a blog, and then to tell the world about the blog, that before might have taken me a week or a few days, you know, I think I'm going to have the courage to tell this story. I think I'm going to have the courage to tell my opinion about what I think about things right now. That could have taken me days. And then if one or two people had have criticized it, I might have pulled it down or pulled it off. And you know, this morning I wrote a blog about why we needed this conversation tonight. And don't worry, guys, I am going to introduce Jackie in a minute and let her take over. But that process this morning was honestly no more than 20 minutes. I saw a meme on Facebook that I'm going to read it to you. I saw this meme, this little Facebook post that said, thinking of your child as behaving badly disposes you to think of punishment. Thinking of your child as struggling to handle something difficult encourages you to help them through distress. And that meme was so powerful. It was so simple, because a lot of times the best writing is the simplest writing. But that launched me into a blog that I wrote, got online, posted, found pictures, loaded the whole thing up, and out in about 20 minutes. And that's because my writing muscle is so strong now. And that's what Jackie's going to help us all do here tonight. And so I don't really, the blog that I wrote isn't that important for tonight. But what I do want you to know is that what we're really here to teach you is how to build bridges instead of walls, and to help you articulate your opinion in a way where maybe someone else sees it as a manipulative ploy to get over their wall, so that you can really tell your story in a way that you're being heard. And, you know, tonight, that's what this is all about. It's teaching you how to get your needs met, and maybe even take it further in learning how to share your big picture, maybe your story, your why, your book with the world. You know, it's unbelievable. I'm gonna introduce us now to our guest, because Jackie has been able to help so many authors become bestsellers. She's a best-selling author herself. She's worked in the publishing business for 25 years, and she only looks 27. Her greatest ability, she says, helping writers perfect their message for the intended audience, whether that audience is children. She's written a children's book, potential clients. She's met, you know, prime ministers. And I mean, this woman has done really big things and has a really professional array of colleagues and business associates. And she knows that writing, it really is a marathon. It's not a sprint. That's the truth. Once you get your book out, it's still a marathon. It's not a sprint. I am still working on getting the emotional edge out there, and it will be 1 year. And so don't think of it like you got 6 weeks to do this. It takes time sometimes. And so I would love to say hello to Jacqueline Brown. She's our newest associate professor at the SWAT Institute. So you students are going to be learning more about Jackie. But Jackie, just before you say hello and I launch into my questions, I want to read you all something that she doesn't know that I was going to read you, that Jackie wrote. And just the way she wrote this to me was like, that's why she's our special guest tonight. She talked about this event today, and she said, this is about authenticity and empowering art in people who feel that because they aren't Margaret Atwood, that what they say doesn't matter. It's about teaching women to learn to harness their inarticulate gut feelings and express them in the most popular and effective method of sharing there is, writing down your authentic story. It's a movement.
That is so true.
And that woman, she knows how to write. Jackie, thank you for being our guest tonight, and thank you for just showing up and bringing all of you. I want y'all to know that I didn't pay Jackie to be here, and I'm not making any money off of anything. Jackie is just a publishing and editing genius, and I want you to learn from her. So thank you so much, Jackie, for being here.
Thank you. You know, I remember the first thing I wrote when I was 7. It was a poem about a maple leaf, about how that leaf died in the autumn, but how much I loved the fact that we could jump into a whole family of leaves and the pleasure that that leaf gave me. And what I remember about that is just that how I was able to express as a little girl the fun that I had, you know, participating in nature, as well as tell it to other people in a way that made me feel proud and made them get it. But as you grow up sometimes, you know, you stop doing these things because you think, oh, I'm not a poet, so I'm not going to write poetry. In fact, the second poem I wrote was probably only a month ago because I didn't think I could write poetry. I've been in publishing all my life, and I had that block. And I was telling Crystal, we were talking about art, how as you grow up, sometimes you block yourself, or sometimes it's because you think your teacher says, or you feel, oh, I didn't get a good mark in English. I didn't get a good mark in art. I'm not good at it. So you stop telling stories or writing the stories down. You stop drawing, you stop dancing because someone's told you you don't dance well. And then, but you know, after a while, something happens. Like for me, one of the things that happened when I was with my little boy is that, you know, you're sitting with him and he says, Mom, draw me an elephant. And I'm thinking, I don't know how to draw an elephant. I don't draw. And then, but he's still looking up at me and I think, no one's around. Okay, so I drew the big ears, I drew the trunk, I drew that rounded body they have and those stumpy forelegs, that long skinny tail with the little hairs at the end. And you know what? It looked like an elephant. And in so many ways, that's the same thing with writing. That somehow you think, I can't do it. I'm afraid to share something on Facebook. I'm afraid to do a tweet because somehow you have this inner critic that tells you that the way you express yourself won't come across the way you want it to. And that can make people stop themselves from sharing their stories.
Yeah, Jackie, how did you, and just so you know, everybody, if you're all wondering why my eyes are beet red, are they showing up beet red? It's so unimportant, but I just want everyone to know that I tried to get rid of them. Jackie, I think that the way that you speak, the way that you tell stories, the way that you articulate, do you think that because you say you learned it when you already knew how to do it when you were, what did you say, 7 years old?
Well, in some ways, you know, like I feel that when you're younger, you're freer. My job in publishing has always been dealing with other people's words. And so I felt very good and capable of editing something that any other people have created. I started, you know, and so when I started writing myself was later in life, and my first book was nonfiction. And in lots of ways that's easier, especially as it was a historical subject. And so you don't have to so much put your heart into it. But nowadays with this movement, with things happening in the world where your input, the way you see things matters. You know, it isn't repetitive just because someone else has got similar views. The way you see it is so important. And when things have changed so dramatically, for example, in the election recently, where so many people are like the views are just so they're polar. There seems to be nothing bridging them in between. Yes. So it's these times where you think, how can I use my words? Because we all love each other. And that's the thing. Most people are good, but somehow something's happened, fear or whatever it is, that's caused this great divide. And it's words, it's storytelling, it's through words, through sharing your story, that you can build connections back to people.
Absolutely. That's what we were talking about before we
Yes.
jumped on the call tonight, was just how really what this conversation is for is to empower women to know that we are being called. The Dalai Lama came here to Canada in 2009 to the Vancouver Peace Summit. And he said, the Western woman will heal the world. And I believed him. And I built the SWAT Institute that year. Because I just knew that year. And it'll be 7 years coming up to 2010 now, where we officially opened our doors. And I felt so called, and I didn't know. I feel like half the time I'm building the runway while the plane's taking off. Yeah. And so I understand the fear, and I have some kind of crazy courage muscle. But what do you say to someone who says, I do have an opinion, and I do know that I do know on some level that my story matters and my story will help somebody, but maybe let's talk about some of the tips. I know we had I think we had a 15-page script that I haven't followed at all, so I apologize. But let's just go right down to some nuts and bolts before we get into some of the bigger thinking processes. But what about that woman that just says, I'm scared right now to even put my opinion on social media that someone will attack me, or I'm afraid to write a blog and really have an opinion that I might be attacked? How do you recommend to someone to tell their authentic story? And how do you make sure that that authentic story is the truth and not a wounded or somehow disempowering version of the truth that won't serve? I think that's an important thing to teach women.
Yeah. Well, I think you don't have to start by jumping into the water. Just like when you learn to swim, you don't jump into the deep end. You can start by kind of doing some writing exercises that build your courage. So for example, if you decide you're going to write, call yourself a writer and do what writers do. They carry a notebook. And so while you're, when you're on the bus, when you're having coffee, if something strikes you or even something that makes you love or hate, write it down and express and start practicing expressing your feelings to yourself. We all have, so many of us have, I was going to say we all, but so many of us, most of us have smartphones these days. And there are so many wonderful apps out there that help you do this. One that I like that's on the iPhone, I meant to check before to see if you can also get it on Android. It's called Day One. Or yes, I think it's called Day One. If it's not, we'll send you that message afterward. But what's so great about this app is that it allows you to put a photograph in. So just say, you see something that strikes you, you take a photograph and you can write something under it. And then when you look back at that a week later and you remember how you felt and how you've described it in your notebook, you'll be surprised that you wrote it. I guarantee it.
Ah, that's beautiful.
Writing, keeping a journal, whether it's online and using the tools that just help to make it look beautiful because there's design in it, will give you confidence.
I love that.
Start by writing down how you feel, your dreams, that kind of stuff. So that you feel more confident in your ability to describe things before you start jumping into some of the phrase that can be quite contentious.
And what do you think? I'll tell you what's really empowered me in my writing, and it's just been the last little while. I've always had editors for a book. This last book, I've done 3 books, 3 with Hay House, and I love them, God bless them, but they were more like you hand a book in and then they take the book and they go through it for copy editing, but your book is your book. You wrote your book. Now, the last book I did with Random House, The Emotional Edge, that editor was just blew me away. And the reason she blew me away is because the way that she edited was she would read through what I would write and she would just ask questions to everything that she didn't, this doesn't make sense to me. Explain this more. Or why do you feel that way? Or it was so through the entire book that
the job of a great editor is to make you read your stuff afterwards and say, oh my God, I'm brilliant. The job of an editor is supposed to be invisible, is to help you get the best out of what you're, to get the best out of your writing, to help guide you, to ask those questions so that they can improve the clarity of what you're saying.
Exactly.
The gaps. You
Did
find out for yourself.
like, she literally, when I look at the first version of my manuscript to the final, like I almost was like, okay, I did write this book, every line of it, but this is a different book.
And you know what? That's what stops people too, because they don't realize that when they're reading someone's final version, the number of iterations it's gone through, they didn't see that ugly first draft. Everyone's first draft.
Exactly.
Abysmal. No one's, and it's okay. The idea is to get it down, to write it, because no one's going to see it but you. Even the editor fee is going to be your second or third to go over it. But no one writes pretty first, not even Margaret Atwood and Toni Morrison. I bet their first drafts are ugly too.
I love that. I love that. And you know, it's so true, because I even had Isabella Viskopova is our professor of coaching at the SWAT Institute, a brilliant young woman. She's became a lawyer, then she became a psychologist, realized that wasn't right for her either. Then she went through Tony Robbins' strategic intervention, and then she came and did the SWAT Institute. And so she was just, at the time she got to me at the end, and at that time, you know, I was doing all the marking, and she would just ask a million questions, just a million questions about all my processes and why I did things. And those questions pushed me and got me clear. And then I became better at teaching and better at teaching because of her questions. And so I love when someone asks great questions. And that is one of the great things that we can do as a coach or an editor. But I'll tell you something. Just one sec, Jackie, and then I'm going to let you take over. Here's what I laughed with Isabella. She got to read my very first draft of that manuscript, The Emotional Edge. I sent it to her. What do you think? She was very diplomatic when she wrote back, and she sort of went, well, you know, I like this, and I would hear some psychology, because she was a psychologist, that you could bring in here, and didn't say too much, and off I went. And so I just went crazy, and I began writing. And she never saw really the book again until it was ready to go to print. And she laughed with me and said, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to know this book has morphed, because when I read your first copy, the first version of it, I didn't think you even knew what you were talking about, or something, you know, something like that. And I said, you know, that's what a great editor does, is they really help take your words, your thoughts, your feelings, and turn them into magic.
Yes. Well, nowadays there's so many venues for writing. You write texts, you write emails, you write on Twitter, you write blogs, you write articles, you can write a book. And what I love about Twitter is you only get 140 characters, and that is really good practice in really clarifying what you plan to say. So.
Oh, I know. Twitter actually is what got me to become concise. Yeah. So that literally when I would read a newsletter, well, you know how I started doing it? I thought to myself, if Oprah were to buy Happen Chance, is that even a good word? Is that a good word? Happen Chance? Happen Chance? Happen Chance?
That's what you mean. So in that case, yes, it is.
If Oprah should happen to read this newsletter or this letter or this blog or this post, what would she think? That's really, I actually read it back over to myself, and I always read everything out loud. So I don't just write it. Then I imagine that I'm reading this to somebody, and does this sound stupid? Like, is this a waste of time? And Twitter allows you to look at every single sentence you put in a book or a newsletter or a blog. It really taught me to look at what even matters in here.
Yes.
What is just blah, blah, and what is really impactful and concrete and will make an impact.
Yes. You know, working with children's material or reading children's books really helps you as well to clarify. I was editing something just the other day. And so when you're editing, sometimes you're doing a bit of writing as well. And so this particular book was on the ecosystem. So that is a complex concept, which of course can fill a book for adults that's 500 pages thick. But of course, this was a 32-page book with lots of photographs and art. So there weren't as many words to express the concept as you can do in something more theoretical. And so as you're writing each sentence, knowing that you only have a certain amount you only have 8 to 23 lines on this page, you'd read one, and for example, there was one where it says something like decomposers, which are like bacteria and fungus, they break down organic material. And then you think, okay, is that clear enough? No, what's organic mean? So then you write it again so that you don't have a word that might cause people to go, or a child to go thud. And which will interrupt their thinking, because they'll stop thinking, they'll stop by going, oh, I don't understand that word. So that's what you do when you're trying to clarify. You read it out loud and you find those clunkers, those words that are going to interrupt people.
Yeah, I love that you pointed that out, because I think a lot of people, when they first get writing, they think they have to sound smart.
Yeah, no.
They have to sound really intelligent. So they pick these, I vehemently don't want you to come here. You know, they put in these descriptive words that are actually like, it would be better to pare all that out and take all that down.
Yes, and then there's other times where if you're writing for a specialist audience where, jargon's important, like for example, the SWOT Institute. If you're talking to other people who are familiar with it, it doesn't make sense to say simply woman accredited training institute. That's a waste of time, and it annoys people, it bores people, that's a clunker there. And so you use jargon knowing who your audience is, you use it appropriately. But certainly you wouldn't use a word like vehemently where strongly or something else would do. But sometimes vehemently is the right word.
That's right. Yeah. What do you think of Grammarly.com? I'll tell you, that has really helped me just have confidence, because once I had an editor, and then for those of you that want to write a book and aren't sure, you literally have an editor that not only helps you with your writing, something Jackie does, but then there's also like these copy editors that just clean up, are just constantly looking to clean up any mistake and any word. So once I had that, I really started getting aware of my grammar sucks. Like my grammar isn't, I write like I talk. I don't always write like you write. So when I got on Grammarly.com, it really did help me though, start to see, sometimes it's great to write the way you talk. And then there's times where it's important to make sure you have your grammar correct. So why don't you talk about that as well, Jackie?
Right, because some things like can make grammar is something that sometimes make people stop in their boot. They think, oh my goodness, I don't know how to write correctly, so I'm not going to do it. That's why copy editors exist. Yeah. So because there's several types of editors. There's developmental editors, which is someone who will make sure that you've got your chunks, your story in the right order, so that it makes sense. And they'll help you move the thing that you've got in subsection 2.7 of chapter 8 would be better in chapter 2. And they help you create your book in that way. And then there's a copy editor who makes sure that you're consistent, for one thing, that if you've said SWOT Institute with S.W.A.W. that is that you've done that consistently, and that if you use leaders anyway, they help with consistency as well as making sure that your grammar is correct. So in some ways, you don't really have to let grammar stop you. It's always what I always think of is get that ugly baby out. That's with the first draft. So you don't let these things stop you. You keep going, knowing that the most important thing is your voice. Your ideas are more important than grammar, because there's things like the squiggly lines in Word, there's things like Grammarly, there's things like copy editors who will make sure that they catch those errors before you go out in a longer piece in particular. And then on top of that, even after you've gone through what the copy editor has said and you've moved things around and you think, okay, before I press print in a longer piece that'll cost you a lot of money and will affect your reputation, say if it's out you can also get a proofreader. There's another type of editor called a proofreader, and that's usually someone who hasn't looked at your work before, so that they're not caught in not seeing errors, because they know what it's supposed to say and they kind of put the word in that they expect to see, and sometimes they miss errors. But a proofreader hasn't seen it before, and they go through and they find those other areas. So there's you shouldn't let that kind of concern stop you, because the most important thing in writing is your idea, your voice, your story, you. The other stuff can be cleaned up afterwards.
Jackie, what made you get into writing? What made you choose writing as your vehicle?
I'm not even, when I'm a scientist. My master's is in environmental chemistry, but it was always, all my jobs have been making complex ideas simple. And so,
Wow.
so my first job happened to be I went to England after after I got, it was mainly because, to be honest, I was like one of the first people in my family to graduate high school, let alone university. And
Wow.
they had all these big plans for me. I was a scientist, but I wasn't the right type of scientist. They were expecting me to be a doctor. So they were getting used to the fact that she wasn't the right kind of scientist. But there I went to England, and I was so lucky. It was like the first of the graduates in environmental sciences. So I got so many jobs. In fact, my first job was with the United Nations Environment Programme's Collaborating Center, which means that we got data from all over the world, and they wanted to make this data accessible to the public. They wanted to create books that the public could see their work. And so there I was with that first job and my second, my third, taking something complex and making it understandable to whoever the audience was, whether it was people without a scientific background, or other jobs I did within that job were to edit documents for the World Health Organization. And so then jargon has an appropriate place. I worked in academic publishing, but I loved working in kids publishing. Is so good for all kinds of work, just because the simplicity. It's so easy to say something in a 500-page book. When you only have 32 pages to say it, that's a lot more tricky. It's much more difficult to be concise. And so that really has helped me to help other people. And so from this unexpected beginning, because I was expecting to wear a white coat and do naughty things like, whatever, scientists. But I ended up being one of the people who helped explain complex things in simpler language. And then I just loved it. I loved writing, the work. When I started my own publishing company, as a scientist in high schools, you often don't have the chance to explore history and other subjects. So that's what my publishing company was about, stuff that I missed in my education. So my first books were on history. And since then, I now do workshops. I run online. I run writing circles, some online, some in person. I do workshops, whether in school and elsewhere, because I just love motivating people to do it, to get their words out, to see that they can do it, and whether they're new or seasoned, I just found that I've got a skill there, and that I'm able to make people feel safe enough to do their best work.
Yeah, that's a big part, is making people feel safe. And yes. I think you have that really special gift. We're going to talk tonight at the end of the call about some of your writing circles, because you've got a writing circle coming up this Saturday.
A couple of
them. Yeah, another one in the afternoon. So we're going to talk about your writing circles. We actually published one of your articles today in our magazine, our Simply Woman magazine.
Yes.
8 reasons why right now, today, is the best time for you to start writing your book. So I thought, Jackie, maybe we could spend a little bit of time just talking. Now, just before we get into why we should write a book, I just really want to say again, though, that, the work that you offer, the coaching that you offer, isn't just for someone that wants to write their book. Let's talk about like the vehicle, and why it's important to know what vehicle. For example, when I wrote for Hay House, there was a certain way that I had to write. I had to write a little more woo-woo. I really did. I could use words like God, and I could use, law of attraction. And when I got over to Random House, we had to change that style a little bit for the audience. So I would love for you to talk about how a woman would know what's the right vehicle for me. Is it a publishing house? Should I self-publish? Is it a magazine? Do I want to write articles for magazines? Is it my own blog? I mean, you're an expert in all those areas. So maybe you could talk about that first before we talk about the 8 reasons why women listening tonight or today should write their book.
Yeah, so it's always about the audience. It's like if there's people, if you're trying to reach someone, you'll probably notice where you're meeting them online or elsewhere. So, for example, if you're at a blog and you're seeing that there's lots of comments under it, maybe that's the vehicle you want to send. You want to create a blog so that the people that you want to talk to will read you there. Often you'll find that you have a message, and your audience will find you in several different ways, and so you won't just want to do one. One of the coolest ways of doing a book actually is to consider. Yeah, you're aware that it's going to take maybe a year, and you want to create blogs. And so one way of doing it is like sitting down and brainstorming, say 52 blog titles or blog topics, so that you can potentially write a blog a week. And then once you look at those topics, then you kind of massage them or look at them, re-examine them again so that they've got a common theme. And you'll find, though, when you're brainstorming, because it's about your story, it's about what's important to you, that there is that common theme there. Then start your blogging a couple weeks before you post it. Like, for example, if you're starting a new blog, so that you've got 4 in your belt. And so then you're posting the old one while you're writing the 5th one, let's say. So within a year, you will have published 52 blogs. You'll have had comments on them, and you'll be able to then go and those could be the building blocks or most of the content of your book. And so then you've done 2 things. You've blogged, yes, and you've built the content of your book already. You go through there and you can refine it based on the comments or just based on looking at that and revisiting again a year later.
Well, and you know what I have found for me, because I do media, I do blogging, but I also do PR. So I have a publicist that is always, and she's always saying, I'm working on my next book, which you're helping me on. It's called On the Edge, everybody, On the Edge. And one of the things she said is sort of the same thing, is see what's trending, put your work out there and you'll notice certain things really grab. You'll realize, I did a post recently about why Trump won the election. It had over 5.7 million views.
Imaginable, wow.
And then you have another blog that has 10 views. So that's why, it's sort of that cliche, build it and they will come. Don't do your blog waiting, should I write again? Nobody even read the last 4. You might have 15 in there, and all of a sudden one grabs and, get it on all your social media sites, offer it to magazines, write, there's so many places where you can submit now. Huffington Post takes so many just regular writers, just regular people that are just getting their opinions out there. There are so many places you can write for our magazine, www.simplywoman.com. Come and be a contributor for us. Sometimes just that alone will just be the thing that is the tipping point for you. And that's why you can't just base it on what are my numbers right now. I always say, write for the millions that are coming.
Yes. And
the millions that are coming.
Yes. And don't forget to interact with other writers who are already out there, offering your comments, so that you're engaging in relationships and you're learning from them, they're learning from you. And in that way, they'll come to your site and look for your stuff and also engage with it. And that brings other people in, and also improves your SEO, helps your word get out there. So
it's always sharing. Sharing is everything. Collaboration is everything. That old model of competition, your competitors are actually your greatest collaborators. Because if somebody buys my book, they buy people's books. They'll buy your book, they'll buy your book, because people who buy books buy books. People that go to movies go to movies. You can't be afraid that, oh my gosh, if they go see my movie this year, this people that are into alternative medicine, they try all types of different things. People are into meditation, will take all different types of people's meditations. That's just the way it is. So you really have to recognize that other writers, other coaches, other people in your world are your best friends.
Yes, and a lot of writers tend to be afraid to read. They're thinking, oh my gosh, if I read that, it might influence what I'm going to say. I don't want to accidentally copy it or plagiarize.
I do say that from time to time. Not when I'm right in the writing frenzy. I'm writing, but once I step out of it, my office is, you'll just see thousands of books, because
to improve your writing, you got to read.
You have to read.
Yes. Because
that's really big.
Because when you think about how dancers do it, they stand in front of a mirror and they copy their teacher, and they keep doing it over and over and over and over, and then eventually they see, oh yes, I've got it right. And even then they keep practicing it more and add their little certain twist to it, because you need to read in order to write well. I've been a
reader my whole life. My favorite thing to do when I was a little girl was to read. So it's probably not coincidental that I became a writer. And Jackie, I never wrote anything my whole life. In fact, when I was in grade 12 English, my English teacher, and I just took my daughter into Oshawa, into Oshawa yesterday, to Henry's camera store. She's a little YouTuber. She does blogging and she does her little video YouTubes, and she wants a new camera. Anyways, as we drove by, I went, there's Dana Blackhomer's optical eye. Oh my gosh, I went to school with her. In fact, when I was in grade 12, my English teacher told me he just wouldn't give me an A. And I would go and say, what? Like, what do I need to do to get an A? He brought out Dana Blackhomer's thing and said, now this is an A. So I always say, good on you, Dana. You became an eye doctor and I became the writer.
Oh,
But
I know,
isn't that fabulous?
oh my gosh.
That's a true story. So, don't let the words of people. I didn't write until I was 20. I'm going to say it was 1997, February 23rd, 1997. I had my very first journal. It was the first time that I ever wrote my thoughts down because I was always afraid that someone would find my words.
You know what? When we were talking about the 8 reasons people should write now, one of the main reasons people give for wanting to write their book is they want to get their story out before they die.
Yes.
So you got it. You have, if it's something that you've been thinking of doing, it's not gonna, that little itch isn't gonna go away. And so you got to do it. You got to start. And that is the number one reason.
I will say this as someone who's written books that are very personal. As much as my books help others, they help me. Yeah. And I didn't realize how cathartic, deeply, deeply, deeply healing, and quite selfish it is. Because when you write your own story, there's this profound healing that you experience just from the validation of others. Yeah. Just having somebody say, what happened to you? Yeah. Is like a soothing balm on your soul. And so even if it's just for yourself, to heal yourself, be selfish enough to help all the rest of us by you healing you. Because when we read your story and we read that you had the courage to not only endure it, but to share it, you liberate all of us. And the greatest way I believe right now that we're going to heal this world, when the Dalai Lama came here to Canada in 2009 and said the Western woman will heal the world, the greatest way we're going to heal the world is we're going to start telling our stories. Yes. We're going to start telling what it feels like to be in this skin and your skin and your skin, and what it feels like to have walked your path and your journey in your words. Yeah. And there's something so magical when you have the courage to do that. And so I'm inviting you to write for my magazine. I've told Jacqueline that if she gets the right writers, and she can work with women that she knows, Crystal, we got a bestseller here. Yeah. I will team up with her. And we will help find an agent for you. Yeah. Between Jacqueline and I, we will help you find an agent if your work is ready. So I want to, at this point, Jackie, talk about what you offer. Again, I want to stress this, that Jackie is not here to make big bucks off of anybody because she is doing very well in what she does. But she has such wisdom. And she has such a gift to share, and I think it's really important that we at least open ourselves up to realizing that there is the ability to learn how to write. Like I said, I didn't write my first blog until I was journal entry until I was 27 years old.
Yeah, so part of like exercising that writing muscle and learning how to do it is learning to share. Because you want a writing circle is a community of writers, and often a writing circle has writers of so many different levels. You'll have beginners, someone who's not even written something, but who's thinking about it, who's trying to gain the courage to start. You'll have people who published, and you'll have everyone in between. So it's a community where you gather and you improve your skills just by sharing, by listening, by talking through, by seeing what hurdles other people have gone through. And in listening and sharing, you improve your skills. One of the most important things about being a writer is developing that thicker skin. Because we were first talking about how do you jump into the fray when you see something online sometimes where you feel that your opinion might clarify, but you think, oh no, I'm a bit afraid. But that's what writing circles are. They're a safer way to start sharing your writing and to developing and improving and improving your skills.
So Jackie, I want to invite you because we have an online, and not that I would expect you to be in there editing and doing that, but I would love to invite you to be the administrator of our Simply Woman writing circle. Jackie has her first article published today on our magazine. I would love to extend to you, Jackie, a bigger role in our magazine. So I would love to invite you and we'll have a conversation about that. But we also have a Simply Women writing circle that is just a place where women right now are just going to post and blog. But I know that you offer a special group. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that. And I do want to say to anyone that's just maybe sitting in front of your computer right now, if you want to jot this website down or you want to open up a new window on your computer and go to www.Jackie Brown, not the movie, Brown, www.JackieBrownBooks.com, because Jackie has a really special offer tonight. I said to Jackie said, Crystal, I don't sell. I'm not a salesperson. I said, no, you're a brilliant woman. And it would be a travesty to not at least give these women an opportunity to come into your world like I have. And like, some of the people I'm working with, Jackie, we just talked today about Q Carme from Liberia, West Africa, and the amazing story that he has about being a little boy that was in the middle of the Liberian army where, just millions of people were murdered, and Jackie will be helping Q work on that manuscript as well. Jackie's doing really important work. So Jackie, let's drive everybody over if they can, JackieBrownBooks.com. Jackie, I know you have a special offer tonight for this weekend, because let's talk about your writing circles that are happening this weekend. You're charging something ridiculously, like I was in shock, like what is it, $24.95?
$24.97 actually.
$24.97. So for you Americans, that's about $18. But Jackie also has created this. I've seen it. She's working on things, and we're doing some design work around it because that's what I love to do. But Jackie has this amazing workbook that she gives to clients that are really going to write the book. That's worth, Jackie, it's worth probably, oh my gosh, it's worth hundreds of dollars.
Yes, because not only does it have my expertise in it, I've also done the work of hiding and kind of auditing the courses of others who help people write books. So I've done that work for you. So you don't have to go and sign up on and get your email, your own email box cluttered with the offerings from so many. I've done all that, and I've incorporated the best of the techniques into this workbook.
And the workbook she's giving for free.
Yes, for free for those who sign up for the writing workshop this Saturday.
Yes.
And
the writing workshop is $24.95 Canadian. It's about $18 American. There's 2 writing workshops she has coming up on Saturday. So Jackie, what if somebody can't do this Saturday? If they sign up tonight, but for a later date?
That's fine. Yes, I'm doing them right now. I've created workshops every other weekend from now to eternity. And if people express a need and say, hey, I prefer one on Tuesday afternoons, and if we can gather enough people, I'll certainly do ones on different days. But what you get from the writing circle is both the community, as well as it's facilitated by an expert, that's me, and so that I can offer you guidance, instruction, and what my favorite thing, which is the motivation to keep going, to let you see that it's worth, just to whatever it is that you need that will help you slant your work or do what I have this story about this one friend of mine who she usually does fiction, and then she shared some nonfiction and was devastated. And so just to be able to help people see that sometimes it might not be your genre, to point you in the right direction to the type of work where you can express yourself at the fullest. So that's what I love to do. I love to motivate. I love to guide. I love to share with writers. I love to speak with writers. And so I'd love if some of you would join me on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, this Saturday or
Eastern Standard Time, because we do have women tonight. I know we have Karina from the UK. And you know what's funny, Jackie? When you started talking about being in England, do you know that your English accent came out?
Oh, wow. Yes. I think I was speaking to someone in England this morning, actually. She booked at 9 a.m. just because that worked with the time difference. And so here it was the beginning of the day and it looked dark in her house.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it's so lovely that you get people all over the world.
Right. So Saturday is at what time? 11 o'clock Eastern, which
Yeah.
is in England, I think somewhere, I don't know, around 5 o'clock in the afternoon or something
4
like that.
o'clock,
You guys
4
can figure
p.m.
4 o'clock.
I think about
You'll all figure it out. But if you want to go over to www.jackiebrownbooks.com, book in tonight for the Writers Circle on Saturday. There's one in the morning, there's one in the afternoon. And like I said, if you want more with Jackie, let's talk about just some of the other things. I know you talk about organizing your stuff.
Yes.
You talk about sort of like, how do you organize so that it flows? I know when I'm writing a book, it's very hard sometimes to organize it all to make sure it flows in a way that really makes sense to the reader.
Yes.
How do you recommend that?
Well, there's several ways. One way of organizing yourself is to kind of divide it into the 52 blocks and think, okay, here's some tiny little chunks I can start working on. So that's one way. Another way is to like do it linearly. It might be that yours is a story of how you overcame, of something that happened to you and where you learned and changed and developed the philosophy that helps see you through what you're doing. So depending on your audience, depending on your story, there's different ways of making your story work and inviting people in. So it really is individual.
Yeah, and what do you think about, there's a lot of women that will ask me, they want to tell their story, but do they use the names of people? How do they do that without, making their family furious with them, or their sister is going to be so angry? Or what do you recommend for someone that way? And then I want to talk about the alternatives between publishing, going through a publishing house, finding an agent, and how you do that. Just the very quick Coles Notes version, Cliff Notes version, versus self-publishing. So let's first talk about, what do you say to someone that says, I have a powerful story to tell, but I'm afraid of the repercussions from my family?
Okay. First, I'd say get the story out. Worry about that afterwards, because that's often a block. You're not going to tell your story, or you keep interrupting your telling of the story because you're afraid that when it's a bestseller, someone's going to be. So don't worry about that yet. The first thing is to write your story. And so then afterwards, you might find that those contentious pieces aren't the most important, and you can find a way around them. Or else, if you feel they're really important and you're willing to take the flack from your family, then you might consult a lawyer. I mean, most agents, and myself included, understand a bit of the libel law because that's the field we're in. So some of the rules are intent, like if the intent was malicious, if you can prove that it was true through emails or whatever else, then, but see, that doesn't stop someone from suing you. And that's costly in itself, but it certainly means that they won't win. So, so definitely my advice is write it first. Don't let that be the reason you don't do it. And then, think about how important the contentious pieces are afterwards. And if you need to keep them in and there's no way of going around it, then you find out through advice whether it really is that damaging.
That's really great advice. And I absolutely agree with that, because there's times where I've thought, when I'm writing, let's say my book that's on the edge, which is really my story, it's been a year now. It's actually been a year since I really dove in and started. And I wrote a lot. I wrote a lot in a very short period of time and then put it away. And as I read back through, there's a lot of stories, like you said, that you realize I had to get that out because I had such rage about it. And I had to get it out in that way. And I actually had to have my editor first time around read it that way to say, oh my God, Crystal, that's horrible.
Yeah.
We have to find a way to tell this, but maybe not in that way, but I'm horrified for you that you went through that. That sometimes can be enough to say, okay, yeah, let's find another way to say it. So I agree with you. The other thing, learning how to write with archetypes, and I teach in archetypes. So you might call the name, like instead of saying it was John Doe, you say, like I used words, like I would call people the lion tamer, or that one just popped in my head, or the snake, or I mean, that's a bit harsh, but you can also the neighbor, You can use ways to the sister, the older aunt, the if you can learn to use that sometimes too. And that might be a better way when you're first getting started and you want to tell your story that you feel afraid, is use archetypes, the aunt, my grand, or that type of thing. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Jackie, let's talk about publishing.
Yes. Okay.
Let's talk about going the route where you get that advance and you have a publisher and they're going to get it out to the world versus publishing yourself. I've done both.
Okay. Well, the world's changing. So self-publishing is becoming a lot more accepted in terms of both its stature as well as its ability. So the reasons that so you've got two choices. Before it was you did one because you couldn't do the other. Now you really can choose. And part of the reason you choose one over the other is what your timeline is. So for instance, if you want to traditionally publish, you have no control over how long it'll take. So
it might take 2 years.
Yeah, it might take 2 years. In fact, it's likely to. Right now, the publishers know what they're publishing in the spring of 2018. So you know that your book isn't going to get out in 2018, especially if you haven't started writing it. Whereas if you self-publish, you can have more control there. And so the way you approach it, in both traditional and self-publishing, if it's a book, it should start with a book proposal. They have very different functions. So for traditional publishing, you won't get anywhere without one. And what's great about nonfiction is that you don't have to finish the book in order to see if agents and publishers are interested. You do so with the book proposals, and they have very industry standard formats. It has to have.
Jackie, you could help someone with creating a great book proposal.
Yes, and that's definitely in my my story builder guide, that book proposal template, and it's definitely way that I could work one-on-one with people to make sure that theirs is strong enough to attach an agent.
And Jackie, how can women work one-on-one with you if they want more than just the writer's circle?
Well,
again, JackieBrownBooks.com.
Yes, and I saw someone say that they couldn't see where to sign up. There's those icons at the side, and you can schedule appointments through the calendar on my website.
Oh, the contact. I think there's a little button down at the bottom. That's where I see it on my computer.
Yeah, contact there, and then there's icons at the
there,
side.
and then you can buy the Writer's Circle. So if you're all just kind of watching, it's JackieBrownBooks.com. Click the little contact button at the bottom. It'll pop up the Writer's Circle for this Saturday, and you can do that there. Jackie, if they want to book a discovery session with you, what's that all about? What's a discovery session?
Well, like I said to Crystal, I so love just talking to writers. And so what the discovery session does is it kind of fleshes out your commitment to writing your book. It starts with what your idea is and what your idea of who your audience is and where you want it, where you see it going. So that's what we discuss in that. We discuss, we ask each other questions, and we figure out what your idea is, what the best vehicle is, whether it's an ebook, whether it's a full-length book. For example, a lot of people want to write an ebook, which is those free ones that you give away on your website, which is like often your best content, and it's a way of drawing people in. And through these, you're able to gain clients. You convert clients in these at an incredible rate by providing people with these ebooks. An ebook is quicker to write. On average, they're like 10 to 30 pages, whereas a full-length book is more like 60, 70,000 words, which I can't even do the conversion right now, but that's a lot bigger than an ebook. And depending on your audience, one might be better than the other. Why you want to write. If you want to write because you got to tell that story, then it's going to have to be a book. It's going to be that book. But if you're writing to draw people in, to get people to get your philosophy, and you want them to know enough about you so that they book your services, then often an ebook might be sufficient.
And Jackie, you offer, just again, I know I'm putting you on the spot right now, but you offer all of these sort of different services. Yeah. Someone could find that out when they talk with you, and you can tailor packages to whether they want to write an ebook or they want to write a big book or they want a book proposal. These are all different ways that you will help serve.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and help you get out of the weeds, like untangle that knotted wool that might be your idea, and to create it and to organize it into chapters, to organize those chapters into subsections, to answer to make those
so exciting
work, so that rather than it being this big idea that you have no idea what to do with, that it becomes a plan that takes usually a year from idea right to finished book, whether it's published. If it's traditional, then we can't say that it'll be a published book, because of course that takes a bit longer. But certainly for those who wish to self-publish, you can do this in a year. You can have something ready to take with you on tours, or to give to your, I mean, I've met people who just wanted to write the story because they want to keep their family, have their family stories. And from that, you wouldn't believe how that leads to sales. For example, this one woman I know who wrote, she didn't expect that it would be wider than her family who'd be interested. And now she's doing book tours all over the place, having to reprint because people are interested in her story, because it paints a history of the region she's from.
Well, you know, I will tell you, and we're getting near the end, but I've had I see a lot of women saying, thank you, Jacqueline. Marie-Père, I love you from Montreal. She's saying, thank you. There's so many women that are thanking you tonight. Carmen, thank you for thanking us. Jackie, I will tell everyone this, for those of you that are wondering if this is a possibility for you. Here's what I want to tell you about me and my little story, because it's factual. Like I said, I wrote my very first journal. And the very first line of that journal was in February 23rd, 1997. I said, I just want to be empowered. Incredible that it would take, 5 years that I self-published my very first book. And Louise Hay happened to see me on the Shopping Channel, because I did a few things. And I'm someone who truly didn't know anybody famous. I did know one person famous. Anyways, I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a manager. And I now, have books that are published all over the world. I remember in 2006, I was with my daughters. They were little girls at the time, and we went into Toronto. I live out in the boondocks in Ontario. We driven into Toronto, and we went to the Eaton Centre, and I walked into Chapters, and there was pictures of my face blown up with my book, my little Simply Woman journal that I self-published, that 40,000 readers across Canada were polled to see which book had most influenced their life. And mine came in at number 14.
Wow.
And so I'm here to tell all of you that are wondering and thinking, do I have something to share? Do I have something to say? Say it, write it. Yes, we need you. We really, really need you. Jackie Brown, thank you so much. I'm going to give you the last word tonight. Again, everyone listening, www.jackiebrownbooks.com. Book in with her Writer's Circle this Saturday. It's $24.95 Canadian, $18 American. You get her amazing workbook that's worth $300 at least. You get that included, and she's giving that away to people that book this Saturday. Book a discovery session with Jackie. I know that you will absolutely love the time that you spend with her. She will take your words and turn them into magic. Jackie, I'm going to give you the last word, because you are the expert when it comes to words.
Wonderful. I think that the guide will be very helpful, just because not only is it my experience, I've read so many writing guides myself, and I've also attended so many of these other courses to see if there were tips from other people who share their wisdom and help people get their books together. And I've incorporated these in this book. But I do realize I made one tiny little error in that I didn't, there's a workshop that one's there, but the afternoon one, which is it's 2 to 4, that one might not be up yet.
That's okay.
I
just want everyone to be watching over the next few days.
Sure.
Plug in with Jackie. Jackie's going to be doing some great work with us at the SWAT Institute, great work with our magazine, great work with our Simply Woman Writers Circle. And Jackie, I just want to thank you. It's just serendipitous how you came into my life and how we connected. Yes. And gosh, I'm just so grateful to you, and I'm so thankful for your wisdom and for helping us all tonight. Thank you so much. Ladies, wasn't this amazing? Hey, was this amazing?
You're amazing. We just love to be in your spirit, Crystal. Thank you so much. That's a blessing.
I love you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thanks for an awesome webinar, Jackie. And I'm going to have the replay up shortly. And feel free to share this, ladies, with your friends. Share, because we want to get the word out there. The best way to fight is to write.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.